What is up, guys? It's Ben with Kame Trick, and today we're going to be installing a harness bar in my S13 240SX. But I think unboxing videos are stupid, so let's get right to it. Alright guys, let's take a look at this harness bar. So, we've got the main harness bar here. This is nice 1 1/2" piping. We have 2 rod ends. These are going to control the angle of the harness bar so that we can get our shoulder straps at the correct angle for maximum safety. And we have 2 of these swinging plates that are going to mount it to the B-pillars. We also have an assortment of hardware. I like to call this an asymmetrical assortment of hardware. As you can see here, we're missing some things, and that is because this is a cheap eBay part, or because if you receive your car parts through any sort of mailing service available anywhere in the world, they're going to ruin the box. And in my case, this very affordable cheap harness bar was packaged kind of poorly, so all the hardware was just loose in the box, and it's entirely possible they just fell out the holes. A little bit of harness bar tech. What makes these harness bars universal is the slots here on these swinging end plates. That's going to enable it, when it's mounted, to have a little bit of distance that it can go to reach the B-pillars on your vehicle. So what you're going to want to do is actually measure the B-pillar distance on your vehicle. So from basically that point to that point, up near the headrest of your vehicle. Or an even better thing to do is look online for other people doing write-ups or videos on what they used, and just get the same length. I'll put text into the video showing how long this bar was. We're gonna start by sliding the seats forward. All right, so here we are in the comfy back seat of my 91 240SX. I probably haven't ridden back here since I was in middle school, so that's kind of amusing. The first thing that I'm going to be doing is taking out the bottom of the back seat. Back seat removal is fairly straightforward. There are these little tabs, which you can pull, and that's going to allow this to lift out. You have to get the seat belts out as well. There we go. Next up, we're going to be removing the top half of the back seat. So you're going to pull your tabs up and then push them forward. Then in the corner of your seat, you're going to pull this carpet back to reveal 2 bolts. They're 10mm. You're going to remove them on both sides, and that's going to let you pull the seat out. I like to store the bolts back in the holes so that I have less interior bolts to figure out where they go. At this point, the seat is loose and ready to come out of the car. However, it is held in by these little tabs, so you can pop those loose if you want to, or just try to shove the seat into the hatch area, which is what I'm gonna try. Next up, we're gonna pop on a 14. This is what lets the top half of the rear seat rotate, so we'll pull that off now. And there we go. The next step in this process is to get yourself some ibuprofen, because if you have a full interior drift car like I do, it's kind of a huge pain to do anything like this. You need to get to one small part of the car, and you have to take almost all the interior apart, it feels like, to access it. So next up, we are going to be removing this massive piece of trim. It's all one piece. And that's gonna let us remove this a little bit easier so that we can get to like 1 bolt, which is what we actually need. We're gonna start by removing this. It's a 14, and that holds the rear seat belt on. So we're just gonna let this hang out back here. It doesn't really matter as long as this bolt doesn't fall out. It's got a pretty nice retaining clip there, so it shouldn't go anywhere. Next up, we're going to remove this bolt. I believe it's a 10. Yep, it's a 10. And next up, we're going to be removing this little push fitting. So to work these, you push the center in like that, and then you pull them out. What I like to use for that is a pick. Got this little set of picks at Harbor Freight, and they're great for not completely ruining your stuff. This is also a good time to remove this piece of trim, the door sill, because the bottom of this piece that we're trying to remove probably hooks under that. So this just takes a Phillips head screwdriver. They come right out, just like this. So we'll go through and we'll pull all these out. The sill trim just pulls up and out. That's going to uncover this little bit here, and we should now be able to pop out that interior trim piece. So to pop this out, I like to start down at the bottom because you've got a little bit of room to move. Just get my fingers under it and give it kind of a firm pull. And that's the sound of popping one of those things out. Then I'm going to trace my fingers along the edge and continue giving it some firm pulls. That side's not wanting to go, so I'm going to move up to here instead and do the same. There we go. It sucks because you feel like you're breaking it. You just have to be careful and hope for the best, honestly. There it is. All right. So that gets that out. We'll flip it around real quick. And you can see these plastic pieces are what we're popping out. When we go to reinstall them, we'll have to take note of where these are and apply a little pressure there and push them back in. For now, we can remove this trim piece. If no one has ever seen a pretty much mint 240SX interior, this is what all of this looks like. This is the first time since this car was built that this panel has been off of the car. My dad was basically the first owner, and then it came to me when I graduated high school, and I've been drifting it ever since, but I've done my best to try and keep the interior fairly clean. So the next thing we're going to be doing is removing this piece of trim, which is going to let us access a B-pillar bolt right here where that harness bar is going to go. There are two main fasteners that are holding it on. They're located here and here as well. And in both of these cases, I'm going to gently use the pick to get them loose. If you look here at the bottom, I've actually discovered this one has a little area where you can go up in, pop that out. Then there's a Phillips head bolt in there, which we're going to remove. And there that is. Next, we're going to be doing the same thing here. And again, we can see there's a little area where we can get a tool in to hook it. Then we can pop that out as well. And again, there's a Phillips head bolt. This one, or screw, this one's a little bit harder to get out, so I'm going to use two hands and set the camera down. And there we go. It's quite short. That's what she said. All right, next up, we're just gonna have to pop some fasteners off from the inside again. This is gonna be using the same process we used for these ones down here. We're just gonna get up in here and apply some strong but kind of brief, just snappy pressure real quick and try to pop them loose. So there went a couple. That lets us work our hands up in here a bit further and try to get some more. And that's got everything. There is a seam right here. This piece actually locks into this piece. I don't want to take this piece out, so very carefully, I'm going to pull this down and then push like this and pop this piece up and out. It wouldn't be a 240 project if something wasn't a little difficult. There we go. There's one. And there's two. Okay, and so really it's just a hole here and then a slider here. There may be a really slick way to do that smoothly, but I didn't really end up damaging the piece. That is going to give us access to this bolt right here, which I believe is where that harness bar is going to mount up on the pillar here. I want to take a short break to thank you guys for watching my video thus far. My name, again, is Ben. My brand is Kame Trick. It's also a grassroots drift team that I lead based out of Central USA. I believe that drifting is one of the funnest things that you can do, and especially when you're doing it with your friends, and then using that as a common ground to make new friends all around the country, if not the world. If that's something that you believe as well, then I invite you to subscribe to the channel and be a part of the family that I'm trying to grow. Just good, fun people enjoying cars, high times, low drama. Let's get back to it. Next up, we're going to be getting the bar ready to install. So we're going to be getting this piece and installing it in here like that. Now, this thing has been designed amazingly well, so it's nice and flat here so that you can put your hardware in there and get access to it. And then for your convenience, they made this nice sunk bolt hole to where once you put the bolt or the nut through, you're not actually able to get any sort of tool on it to fasten your hardware. So what I'm going to do is just stick a screwdriver in there to pin it while I tighten it. So we're going to go washer, bolt, and then we will slide this piece in, slide that through. Next we will hand tighten the nut. And finally I'm going to use a screwdriver to attempt to pin that while I tighten the nut with a socket wrench. We do want to leave this a little bit loose so that we can install it. Back in the car, we can see that this is the sliding track for your automatic seat belt. If it still works, then hats off to you. Mine does. So this is a 14. We're going to be removing this bolt so that we can stick the harness bar in here. Hopefully this bolt is long enough, but be prepared to run to the hardware store if you are not comfortable with the amount of threads that is going to be left in it. There's extra room on the front of this here, which there's not room here. So I'm not able to put this on top of this piece as is. Your options are going to be to either trim this down if you feel comfortable with that, or you can also try pulling this out a bit and actually putting the bar underneath. I'm going to start by trying that, and then before I put all the trim back on, I'm going to power up the car and test the function of the sliding belt assembly to make sure that it still works in that layout. I don't see why it wouldn't, but you never know. I do think I'm gonna need a helper, so I'm gonna go grab Mrs. Kame trick and have her help me hold the bar while I slide it under here on both sides and then bolt it back in. Alright, so I wasn't able to film that part because it just took a little bit of extra finesse, but I went ahead, as you can see, and put this on the inside, the metal side of the seatbelt slider. And if we come around and look at the other side, there again, you can see it. I'm in the process of evaluating how I feel about that. Assuming that the seatbelt can actuate properly, I may just leave it. It is a little bit longer. You can probably see here that that metal plate is sticking up off of the vehicle a little bit. It's not flush with the metal. So it's actually a little bit too short of a bar if you go on the car metal side of that assembly. If I'd cut it down and gone on the front side of it towards the center of the vehicle, then it probably would have been a perfect fit. The only other important note for setting up a harness bar is the angle that your seatbelt comes out from here and goes around the bar. You want it to be pretty close to parallel, or at least within 20 degrees of that, so you can move the bar up and down in order to achieve that. It's always important for stuff like this to make sure you test the fit and function before putting all that trim back on or proceeding with the rest of the install. Okay, everything's good. Here is the support rod. A quick disclaimer, I did pick up some new hardware from the store because I just didn't care for what was included with that universal kit. So to install the support bar, I'm going to start with the bottom location. You're going to pull back your carpet. Behind your carpet, you're going to find this plastic guard, and it has one of the push style fasteners. So you're going to push the center in and then pull that out. So push in the center, then the whole thing will lift out. We'll also find random memorabilia in here, like a 1988 nickel. Okay, next you're going to pull these carpet bits up and away a little bit. You don't actually have to pull the seatbelt through. You just needed enough room to fold this back and see this bolt, which I'll move out of the way of the light there, is one of the two bolts that holds this seatbelt in, and it's the one furthest towards the back of the car. We're going to be removing it and slotting that support bar into that bolt. Alright, so first we're going to remove the bolt. It's a 14 millimeters, so we're just going to peel all this back. Get a wrench on it. Make sure that you start the wrong direction. It's always the good way to do it. And then remove the bolt. The bolt does have a retaining clip on the inside of it, which makes it basically a huge pain to get off, because even once it's loose, that retaining clip will hold it into the vehicle. So you do have to fool with that a little bit. There are two schools of thought on how to handle the carpet, assuming you do want to keep as much of your interior as possible. One school of thought is to cut from here to here, down to where that bolt hole is, and just fold it around your support strut. Once you put that side step trim back in, you're not going to really see the cut very much, if at all. The other school of thought is to drill a hole through the carpet, or at least I assume that that's a school of thought. That is what I'm going to do, and I will show you how to locate that hole pretty easily. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to thread this bolt into the hole, just a couple threads, just enough that it catches. I'm going to look at the location, hold my finger over where the bolt is, because I can feel it. It's pressed out really far right now. And then I'm going to use my Dremel tool, but you could use any tool that you wanted. I've got this random little metal-headed bit. I'm not entirely sure what it's for, but I am going to basically just puncture a hole straight through the carpet in the very center of this bolt head that I can feel. Alright, so we got it, and now I'm going to look at the location of that on the inside of the carpet, and I'm going to widen it out until the bolt fits through it. Not the bolt head, because we're going to be taking the bolt and going in from this side, so just the diameter of the actual threaded parts of the bolt. So this is what my approach will give you. It's not threaded in there, but it's basically just going to look like that. No cut marks. As long as you have the accuracy to find that hole and not have like a massive slot where you were searching for the correct location, you can get away with doing something like this. Now let's get the new hardware out and install that support rod. If you're wondering why we need new hardware and can't reuse these pieces, it has everything to do with the thickness of this. So right now we have this threading through that seatbelt bracket and going into the car. Once we put this in the way, we also have the added thickness here. And as you can see, even just threading that through, there's almost no real threads that make it. So as a result, I purchased a longer piece, and I'm going to use the lock washer, and basically I'm going to have a big fender washer. So we're going to go through the rod end, a fender washer just to be nice and spread the load out on the carpet. That's going to go through the carpet, and then inside the carpet we're going to put this up against the metal, and it's going to tighten down like that with the carpet located here in between the washer and the lock washer. Alright, so this is always a little bit of a pain to make work, but we're going to put all this together as I described, shove it through the carpet, take our lock washer, put it on the other end through the carpet, and then we're going to line this up. When you finally succeed in getting it to thread, which may take a couple of minutes because you're doing it blind, go ahead and start to tighten it down. You don't have to tighten it down all the way. You do want to make sure that this can move somewhat. And then the other side is quite simple. You may have to turn the support rod, which is going to extend it out to get it to be the correct length. And then once you've got it the correct length, it's going to be bolt, washer, support strut, another washer, and the nut. And I've not tightened it. It looks like this is under a little bit of bind, which I can alleviate by widening this piece a little bit if I want to. Also, there are little collars that you can use to space it out if need be, and I certainly have enough room that I could use one of those if I wanted to. But that is going to give you the gist of it. You can then adjust these to change the angle of the bar, which is going to give you the right angle from your seat holes to the bar for your shoulder straps. That completes the process, guys. Now all you have to do is put the trim back in, following the reverse of what was displayed. Once I get my trim back in, I will toss together a quick montage showing how it looks. But here is what we've got. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and share it with one of your friends who might also be getting ready to work on a project like this. And once again, because I think drifting is one of the funnest things in the world, and hanging out with your friends while doing it makes it even better. If that's something that you agree with as well, then please consider subscribing. It costs you nothing but a second of your time, and it helps me out to spread the word about my channel to more people. Hope you guys have a great night. Peace.